questions that people might
Sure, absolutely.
ask me
Happy to answer them.
is, because as you know, we work with people long distance, and you work, on their behalf.
Yes, absolutely.
And they don't even have to be there in person.
Absolutely, because everything's interconnected.
Yes. So how does that work?
With distance healing, basically, we use the surrogate anyway. Even if you were in the room during constellation, you would pick another woman to be yourself, or you could even pick a man. The gender doesn't matter.
So a surrogate is picking someone to be to represent you.
To represent you. And then we might pick a surrogate to represent your mother. We could pick a surrogate to represent money, a career choice, an illness. And then we let that surrogate speak and interact with the representative, and the dynamics start to show up. Now, the person may think, I had an experience last night, someone was brought in as a health issue, and the person who was the health issue got severe pelvic pains and just almost fell to the floor in agony. And it was obvious that there was a lost child. So luckily, where the client has a surrogate there, I can ask the client, did your mom lose the baby? Because I felt it's called role shift. She was put in as a disease, client's multiple health issues, and then what happened ever so quickly in less than 2 minutes is the woman was on the floor writhing in pain, and she was a representative in a role, represented as health issues that immediately turned into mother suffering a miscarriage.
And the client was
And I got to speak to the client. Well, this was local. The client was in the room. Or if the client is distance, I'll ask them these kind of questions. So I do have that information. I'll know instantly. But in the room, when you have a surrogate, so you're watching someone have your constellation, the surrogates.
Yes.
And so, number one, you can ask the client, what happened with your mother? Did your mother lose the baby? And you know right the moment it's happening that was the case. Yes. So ironically, this person last night had multiple health issues, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, and depression. And it turned out her mother lost 3 children. And part of the resolution was to include those 3 children, that she was part of a family of 5, not just 2 living daughters. But there were 3 missing ones in the family system. The mother felt great, she felt great, and her son's been battling depression, a teenage boy battling depression. So at the end, we had all the strength of her larger family of 5, and then we put her son up, and he's been carrying his grandmother's depression over losing children, and his mother's suffering from having lost siblings. And the feeling in the room was just delightful, and there was such a sense of harmony and happiness. And will her multiple diseases have to be there? Were her multiple conditions representative of missing siblings? A way to say, I love you? So it gives us a different view on how to witness disease and conceive the place disease has in our life. Is it unfinished business from another generation? Can we work back in time to find the source of that? And last night, dramatically, we did. And even if the client wasn't there and I had their questionnaire filled out, I would know that information. My mother lost a child before me or after me. She had an abortion. So I would know from the paperwork I have in a distant constellation that what the family history was. So it basically would have been the same process whether the client was there or not.
Yes, so for a distance constellation, what we do is we have the client fill out an extensive questionnaire,
yes.
And then we give that to you, or we'll email it to you, and you can work with people on another continent. It doesn't really matter where they are.
Everything is that interconnected, believe it or not.
It's pretty amazing. And then I have a little story to remind you, when I first met you, and you did a piece, or the group, I had a representative, and it was my great-grandparents that were killed in a car accident back in the early 1900s. And I learned the other day that there were lots of car accidents back then because there weren't any sides to the cars. People would fall out. They didn't know how to drive them. And my grandmother was orphaned at age 2. And so the whole family of 4 children were separated.
Yes, absolutely.
And so there was the grief of having lost her parents and the grief of having lost her twin and the whole separation. And as that was resolved, the following week my uncle, so that was 1, 2, 3 generations later, had been carrying this huge depression. And he came out of the mental hospital and he was told that the lithium he'd been put on was the wrong medication, and that all he had was a low thyroid problem.
Oh my God, that's beautiful.
Isn't that an astounding thing?
Absolutely.
And none of us would ever have thought that depression was related to his grandparents being killed when his mother was an orphan at 2.
Yeah, and it shows you how interconnected we are with our ancestors and how our suffering is connected to things that aren't complete. So here, this is why it defies space and time. We heal something in his past, his distant past, even further back than yours, but yet it has a positive effect in his life.
Yes, and on our whole family.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, we all benefit